Hello everyone, it is the Clown Decade, where things are only going to get worse before they get better, and today it is reacting to yet another politics show, Vox Pop, because they managed to find the most mental people imaginable, but this time they're at the Reform Conference trying to find out why Reform members are desperate to save Britain from wokeism. Which is literally the title of this Vox Pop, by the way. Anyway, no point keeping you waiting. Let's hear what the Reform members had to say.
It's not white privilege, it's me working and having generational wealth.
I have literally no idea what she is talking about, what the context is. Typically, though, these beginning clips, if they're trying to be nice about the people that they're Vox Popping, it will just be someone giving a summary of what they think. When it's like this, or when it was with the Tories, they typically put the most mental clips that they could up front and centre, because effectively their audience are supposed to hate these people. And so when you hear it's not white privilege, nothing else really matters. It's just, oh, these people don't believe in wokeism, they're bad.
In the same way that if I go to Dubai or Turkey, where it's like strong Muslim, I shouldn't be overpowering my English Christian views there, because it's like respect, you know?
Yeah, that's fine, that's fair. I mean, I'm going to probably end up agreeing with an awful lot of what these people are saying, because I'm a Reform member myself, and from things I've been hearing at the Reform Conference, it's going pretty well.
Fair enough, like, there's an argument that we stole some things off the Indians. I get that, but at the end of the day, we were able to capitalise it and bring it to the mass, yeah? And that's what we were excelled in.
Okay, I'm probably going to end up disagreeing quite a bit with this woman, though. I find it quite hard to agree that we stole things from the Indians. I find it quite hard to agree that there's always the meme of the British Museum as just a load of stolen artefacts, when in reality an awful lot of them were either got through completely legitimate means via trade, or they were literally dug up from the ground because the people who were there at the time did not care for these artefacts. Now, maybe we did steal some. I don't know. I don't really care. The fact of the matter is that things in the British Museum are very, very well looked after. Probably the best place for them.
It's been a great year for Reform. They won 4 million votes at the general election, they returned 5 MPs to Parliament, and only one of them has done jail time for assaulting a partner.
Bit harsh, but yeah, that's true. Their paper candidate, in his very early 20s, yeah, he did end up going to jail for a few months for assaulting his girlfriend. He's repaid his debt to society. Bring it up if you want, I guess. As I say, it's a little harsh. But whatever, this whole video is supposed to be, you need to hate Reform, let me show you why.
There's clearly a lot to celebrate, so I've come to Party Conference to meet the members. What are we doing here today?
What am I doing here today? I'm going to the Reform Conference.
I mean, to be fair to this woman, I really do like her t-shirt. Very 2010s meme energy. It's nostalgic more than anything. But, I mean, managing to find mental people at a conference, I mean, from the clips they put at the beginning, not too shocked, but, you know, it's not like what Callum from the Low Seaters used to do, where for 3 years on the trot, he managed to make like an hour-long supercut of the Labour conferences, where people get up on stage and just be mental. You know, these people are just in the crowd. At least they're not up on stage like the Labour conference, you know?
Come a long way.
I have. I come from Aberdeen in Scotland. I think it's very important to be here and turn up to give the party the support it needs, as I think Britain is on the verge of collapse if something doesn't change soon, because I don't think the infrastructure can cope with the, shall we say, the ever-increasing population. That's the problem.
Yep, a lot of people will be supporting Reform because we have seen mass migration for too many years now, and a lot of us, me included, want to see it reduced to basically zero. Because on every level, everything is getting worse. Oh, GDP's going up, that's great. Well, GDP per capita's flatlined since 2008, so clearly immigration is not the answer. Let's sort that out and then see what we can do to actually make things work better in Britain.
How's your Reform Conference been?
It's been an amazing experience. First conference I've ever been to, anything like it, and it has been amazing. So many people that all think alike, and it's been so friendly, and it's been good fun as well. I think fun has been the key.
Yeah, there's been people from the Worcester Club who've been given updates while being at the Reform Conference, and from what I can tell, very friendly atmosphere from things I've seen from the Reform Conference's live streams and GB News. Very lively, very energetic, despite the fact that the average age there is about 58. But this is what you need. You know, having the boomers mobilising, it's a very good sign, because it's always the case that older generations vote more. That's just the case. And if you can do that and have a cohort of younger people, which obviously the woman in the meme t-shirt is part of, and you really are looking at a potential proper political force in Britain, 4 million votes is nothing to stick your nose up at. That is absolutely fine, and Farage is clearly capable of getting that as a baseline. Whether that's his ceiling, I guess we'll have to wait 3 to 5 years to find out. But he seriously looks like he wants to be at the reins of it while it professionalises and establishes itself, and then he'll probably hand the reins over to someone else. That appears to be the plan at the moment, which I am absolutely fine with, because I like Farage, as much as people say, oh, he doesn't go hard enough on certain issues. Well, the man is good at playing the political game. I say, let him work his magic.
So I'm very patriotic. I see that our country has Judeo-Christian values.
Just a bit of a side note, I see people have a bit of a go when people like Farage use the term Judeo-Christian values. I don't think it's that bad a term. My biggest issue with it is that it is directly an Americanism. I don't think there's an issue with saying we have Christian values. I don't think there's too much of an issue changing that to Judeo-Christian values. The thing is that it's this weird, almost centrist term, I think I can say at this point, where left-wingers hate it because they think it means white supremacy. Far-righties hate it because it's got Jew in it. And me, personally, being, you know, a fan of the Jews, a bit facetious, but I'm certainly friendly with Jews, and I don't see them as a problem. Yeah, I just don't see it as that big an issue. Anyway, side note, carry on.
And that is one of the reasons fundamentally why we've prospered throughout history.
Yeah, I even found out recently that the way that we bought the Suez Canal is effectively Disraeli asked the Rothschilds to raise the money within 10 days to buy it when it was going up for auction. And that's effectively how Britain got the Suez Canal, which was quite a major part of the empire because it increased trade between Britain and India massively, because it was a much quicker route than going around Africa. But yeah, a Protestant work ethic certainly is what made Britain great. I don't think people are going to particularly deny that.
If you look at the amount of inventions, there's a great stat that was put out, 51% of all inventions, okay, were invented by British people. But if you look at the triangle, there's a big triangle which goes between, it's in Europe to the UK, and the vast majority, overriding majority of inventions were invented in those countries.
I mean, whether these statistics are 100% accurate or not, I don't think really matters. The point of the conference and the point of Lee Anderson's speech, which is what she's referencing there, is to effectively say Britain was great, we used to invent things, we invented so many things that this stat sounds believable. That's effectively what was going on there. And to be honest with you, if leftists start saying, oh, we didn't invent 51% of all inventions over the past 1,000 years, my simple reply is, I don't really care. The point is that we used to invent things, and now that seems to be thrown over to America, and China just steal all of their innovations. Why aren't we innovating anymore would be my question. And I saw the map where it said pretty much all inventions happen in this triangle. It went between like Scotland, northern France to northern Germany. Again, I don't know how true that is. I also don't really care, because again, it's a very, very believable statistic. I mean, even Ben Franklin, who is seen as an American forefather, most of his inventions were originally conceived when he was living in Paris, which is within that triangle. So there was clearly something quite unique about northwestern Europe that was making it so that everyone was wanting to innovate. In France, it's probably because they had about 20 revolutions and permanent war. In England, after the permanent war, after we kicked Napoleon's bum, we basically had the most minarchist state known to man, the biggest free market and free trade policy that we ever had by 1870s. That's where most of our inventions come from. Again, we had so many that we literally just made a massive greenhouse to show off all the inventions created in Britain. It was called the Crystal Palace. And they had about 4 great exhibitions because we had so much to show off. That's not happening anymore. That's all the point is. Whether that statistic is 100% accurate doesn't particularly matter, but it's one thing I notice a lot of people having a go about. With Lee Anderson's speech, it's like, oh, that's ridiculous. More than half of all inventions in Britain, ridiculous. Well, in reality, it's probably not that far off. It's probably closer to 40-odd%, but that's still very high.
Highlight being?
Probably it had to be Nigel's speech, but Anne Widdecombe was fantastic as usual, wasn't she? She's just an amazing speaker. Yeah, I think it's probably Nigel's speech. Even his farewell speech actually was pretty good.
I mean, people's highlights at conferences are quite rarely going to be that interesting, but I will say I've listened to all the speeches from the Reform Conference, and they're all pretty good. I'd say ones I'd say definitely listen to are Nigel Farage's and Widdecombe's. Basically all of them, apart from there was the woman councillor who was a Tory but went to Reform. She seemed to be there to warm up the crowd, to basically seem like a normal person, but she didn't have an awful lot to add, I'd say. More of a mid-speech than anything, very endearing, but not as eloquent and not as hard-hitting as all the other speeches. I mean, I was just going to list them all off, but they're all really good. Especially, I'd say, listen to Matt Goodwin's, Nigel Farage's, and Ant Middleton's. They were all the best, I'd say. So, go ahead, go watch them. But after this video,
we've got a diverse amount of history coming in. You know, Anglo-Saxons, Celts, the Romans. We've got a huge amount of history.
Yeah, I'd refrain from calling it diverse. I'd say that's playing too much into the left-wing axiom language games type area. Just avoid it. Just say rich or large amount, like you said. That is fine. Probably, arguably, actually, England has the richest history in the world, given that England was founded just over a millennia ago. In fact, it's closer to 1,100 years ago. I think it actually is the 1,100th anniversary of England being established in like 3 years, possibly 4. I am completely on the side of having a massive England-wide celebration for that.
We've got Chatsworth House, we've got all of these beautiful, amazing buildings, yeah? So that's our pillar, our history. We brought the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was made in Manchester, yeah?
Well, other cities as well, but yes, Manchester was certainly put on the map through the Industrial Revolution. Having grown up there, you learn a lot about it, mainly through grim artwork from C.S. Lewis, but in reality, it probably made a lot of people's lives better rather than made it worse. I have to say, though, I am very much enjoying this woman's energy. It is exactly what we're looking for. I think her mind is just going quicker than her mouth can move, is the way I'd put it.
It was made in Manchester. I went to the Manchester Museum and I couldn't actually believe, you know, the cloth industry, everything. We brought so many inventions to the UK. Fair enough, like, there's an argument that we stole some things off the Indians.
Oh, it was in the context of inventions. Again, I guess we could call it stolen, but again, we did rule India. I don't know if you can call it stolen if, you know, we ruled the place. In terms of things to help the Industrial Revolution, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But I'm not against the idea that inventions were, or ways of industrialising were implemented in India and even innovated by Indians that the British, if you really want to put it this way, took. But I mean, it was all part of the same empire, you know? And yeah, she is right. Part of the reason Britain really did become great and mean something beyond being the biggest island in the archipelago was mainly because of the Industrial Revolution and our ability to then become the world hegemon via our absolutely massive navy, which we managed to build via industrialisation. So, again, loving her energy, though. But the context of that that India line being about inventions, yeah, that makes it a hell of a lot more questionable than I initially thought.
I get that, but at the end of the day, we were able to capitalise it and bring it to the mass, yeah? And that's what we were excelled in.
Yeah, Britain's standard of living have literally never increased as much as they did during the Industrial Revolution. Wealth and standard of living both just massively increased during it, because that's what industrialisation does.
So we've got the Industrial Revolution. We've got the sports that I've just mentioned to you, the suit, Savile Row, the suit that everyone wears in this, you know, in this day and age. It's the principal business attire, yeah, that everyone wears every single day. That is an English-made design.
Yep, dinner suits, business wear, it is all basically an English design. It pretty much all, certainly the modern suits, they are downstream of military garb. And styles have certainly changed over the past centuries, but yeah, formal wear was very much of British origin. But again, I really want to compliment the energy here, because this is the type, basically this is what we need to act like when anyone asks, why are you proud to be British or English? This woman is naming off an awful lot of things off the top of her head, probably more than I could name off. And I just find that impressive. And yet, what are the comments saying? Oh, this woman's an idiot. No, she's remembering quite a lot of things off the top of her head. I'm actually relatively impressed.
What would you change about Britain?
In policy, well, the same as, the reform message is we need to tighten up these border controls. They're the cause of all the other ills of the country.
A lot of issues are certainly down to immigration, but I'm not going to lie. Immigration's a very modern issue. I'd argue that the post-war consensus has done far more damage than immigration ever could. I do mean that both economically and culturally, by the way. The post-war consensus stopped Birmingham growing, and that's part of the reason it's just awful. And then immigration happened and made it worse.
The housing, the cost of living, and everything else that people are complaining about is the main cause, the amount of people here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but honestly, just to simplify it down to that, it's not entirely untrue, and I think it's a vote winner. So, carry on.
Well, I've been a member of the Tory party for a long while, big Thatcher supporter when I was younger, a long while ago. And I think the Tories have moved to kind of more woke policies, kind of more left-wing policies. And I started looking around for an alternative. Finally quit the Tory party about a year ago now.
It's funny how the title says, reform against wokeism. And it's taken 4 minutes, which is just under half the video, to actually hear the word woke. And this guy is pretty much in the same boat that I was, where I was a Tory member for a bit, didn't like the fact that they kept going left-wing, and so decided to then leave them to join Reform. And I think this is going to be a lot of people's story during joining Reform. I think people still in the Tory party are hoping that Robert Jenrick can keep them professional and be able to bring them back from the brink. But I think it's too late. But as Matt Goodwin said in his speech, it's insanity. It's literally insanity to keep voting for them and expect them to give you anything different, even with Jenrick, even if I do think he's the best of them.
What are the woke policies that the Tories have turned to?
Well, they've just ignored most normal people's concerns regarding immigration.
It's the really annoying thing about what woke policies do they have? It's even hard for me, who follows this stuff, to think of something quickly, like off the top of my head. And so everyone goes to good or reliable immigration, which is still fairly woke, but I think the number one thing I guess I could go to is funding hope, not hate, which I guess then they'd say that's not direct Tory policy. Okay, but they didn't do anything to stop it. Allowing diversity roles in all sectors of the public sector. Putting up gay flags and things like that. Simple things like this are things that people in these vox pops need to be able to just throw out. But it's quite difficult to do because it's not a massive thing that people think about. So yeah, it just falls back on unreliable immigration, which is still fair enough, but quite difficult to say is woke, even though it kind of is.
I think they've allowed certain institutions to be captured by... So, for example, just yesterday, and this is obviously under the Labour government now, but just yesterday it was reported that the Foreign Office were flying the bisexual flag. With all the problems we've got in the world, the Foreign Office choose to fly that flag.
I mean, yeah, as I say, that's fine. And the Tories kept doing that as well. So you can say that. And obviously the response would be, the gentle parroting, but that's a small problem though, isn't it? And which to my response would be, well, why can't they just fly the British flag then? Why do we need all these diversity targets, say? Why did they take contracts with Stonewall to investigate whether they're doing well enough for the gays? Things like that. But this is the problem. It's always kind of deep in your mind that you push down because it isn't actually that big a problem. But the consistency and the fact that it goes on for years and years and years actually does turn it into a problem. But it's the death by 1,000 cuts thing. What woke thing do they do? I don't know. I'm trying to think of about 20 cuts at once and put them into one category. That's quite difficult to do.
Absolutely. Because in a free democratic society, we have to tolerate We have to. We have to make that. Everybody has a choice to live their own lives, do what they like if they're an adult.
I'd actually argue democracy actually has the opposite incentives. If you don't like something, you can actually vote it into illegality. I mean, everyone loves saying that they're tolerant. All they mean by that is, I'm not racist. Yet, we have literally watched Keir Starmer release actual criminals from jail to make way for people who said naughty things online that is very anti-Labour and very anti their ideology. That's not very tolerant, is it? And it's another thing, even with classical liberalism, the whole point is that you can actually be intolerant. You're actually free to avoid people you don't like. That's the freedom of association part. But it's quite an unfortunate thing. Everyone's been so captured by the left-wing hegemony that they will just repeat left-wing talking points without even realising it. Which I don't blame the guy for. It's quite difficult to avoid, but ultimately, yeah, I think we need to push back on tolerance as a good thing. I think, like most things, it comes down to how it's applied.
We don't and shouldn't celebrate it.
Alright, never mind, the guy's recovered.
Because, for example, the Pride, nothing against the Pride flag as such, but...
Oh, just say you hate seeing it everywhere, for God's sake. I'm against the Pride flag. I'm against it because I think collectivising the gays under one flag is stupid. I think trying to differentiate them from the rest of society is stupid. But they want to keep doing it. While I think it's stupid, I don't think they should be doing it. It is not difficult to say.
Certain religions, that is very offensive to them.
At least the guy's smart enough to not outright say some of these things that are going to be recorded and put up on YouTube that could get him arrested by Starmer. He's not an idiot.
So should it be cover the streets? Should it? For me, the only thing that should cover the streets is the Union Jack.
Based.
Because that incorporates everything that is what this country's about.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally called the Union flag. It's there to unite us under one banner, under the King's colours. It is a great thing.
Everything that is democratic.
Well, let's not go that far. Everything that is constitutionally monarchist.
Everything that a person is free to do, free to believe, free to believe what religion is, how they live their lives as they're an adult, what they do with themselves, how they dress, everything. That should be what it is.
Again, I'm kind of fine with what he's saying there because I don't think it's quite true what he's saying. I think if I pushed him and said, so yeah, these people who believe that you should be able to, say, marry anyone under the age of 16, these people who say that you should be free to commit female genital mutilation, I don't think he'd say, yeah, those people can come into the club. But yeah, the story of Britain is uniting the four nations together, and then Ireland causing a bit of a hissy fit. There is unironic multiculturalism there. The thing is that I think we need to be a bit more exclusive about the cultures we allow in to that multiculturalism. And that's effectively what reform is about. We have British culture. We want to keep British culture. That doesn't happen when you make it less British by bringing non-British people here and saying we need to accommodate them by sacrificing our own identity. I don't agree. I think that's bad. That's pretty much what reform's saying.
There's too many people come to the country and the services can't take it. You know, this whole issue as well, I work in the wastewater sector, the whole issue with sewage overflows, and we have sewage overflows going into rivers. It's because the networks can't take the amount of people that are coming onto the grid.
Since we're on topic, I really should do a video on it, but I always just instead cite a Twitter thread, which has basically done all my work for me anyway. It'd be free content for me, really, but anyway. The thing I'd just touch on here in this Steve Loftus mega thread, which I just suggest you all read anyway, is effectively that sewage pipes overflowing and then being dumped into rivers, that was basically the modus operandi for whenever sewage overflowed. And it's not necessarily due to too many people being here using the sewage system, though obviously that will put pressure on it. It's actually because the way sewage systems used to be built is that they were basically just built into storm overflow drains as well. And so actually it's during storms where this would typically happen, and you have two choices when these pipes are being shared. One, you can either put it into the river, or two, you can stop it overflowing and have it come back up toilets. If those are your two choices, put it in a river. And this issue was much larger under Tony Blair, by the way. Tony Blair was almost brought to European court because of how dirty rivers were when he was Prime Minister. All these things have actually got much better. The only reason it's got into the news is because we recently started actually monitoring every day these overflow pipes, and that's why it's got into the news, because we actually have data on it. But we have nothing to compare it to because we weren't monitoring it before. And so basically, I'm unironically saying that this is not a problem. Privatisation of the water companies actually worked. This is just a leftist lie to effectively get nationalisation back in place. Despite the fact that even looking at all the statistics, England's water is ever so slightly more clean than the nationalised Welsh water, the nationalised Scottish water, the nationalised Northern Ireland water. Basically, there's no difference. It doesn't really matter. And so you may as well keep it in the more efficient private hands. Because, yeah, the only thing making water more expensive is the fact that they're not building reservoirs for England, which they're actually doing now as well, so even that'll get cheaper. Anyway, small aside, please, let's get back to this woman with the fantastic shirt.
For me, personally, in my opinion, any new developments should finance their own in-house sewage treatment works.
Pardon me? Why can't they just connect it to the system and pay for the sewage treatment there? Again, even if overflowing was getting worse, the whole point of the payment is that they improve the system. I'm sorry, how do you expect for every new development to have their own sewage treatment works? That's gonna stink. The whole point of the sewage system is that you get it away in the middle of the countryside, because everywhere smells like cow pat there anyway.
But it's all blamed on the water companies, and we're scapegoating the water companies because of this, and it's not fair on the water companies.
I mean, she's absolutely ruined the argument there, but effectively I do agree with her basic statement that the water companies are getting an awful lot of blame for actually improving the system. But I've already gone through that aside, so we'll carry on.
Apart from immigration, which of Reform's policies are you particularly pleased with?
Well, I just think UKIP is the answer to so many things. I mean, the LBGQ, whatever it is, that needs to be controlled. I mean...
Again, I wouldn't use the word control, I'd just say done away with. People are fed up with identity politics. That seems to be the common theme here, and I think that's absolutely reasonable.
Every company is struggling at the moment, and there's so many rules and regulations. We voted to come out of the European Union, Common Market in my day, and we haven't done anything. We're still abiding by all the rules. And as for this fallacy of the, shall we say, the world collapsing because of all the pollution, well, the world has spent its life changing. It's not a...
I mean, for a start, yes, we left the European Union and then didn't have a massive bonfire of all that red tape. We still brought in EU regulation, by the way. If you ever wondered why plastic bottle caps now are attached to the bottle, that is an EU regulation. An advantage we seem to have is that we're not messing around with AI regulation like the EU are, so at least we're making headway there. And then when it came to immigration, we actually made the whole issue worse because of Boris Johnson, as Matt Goodwin likes to keep pointing out. And then when it comes to pollution, I mean, he's obviously talking about climate change. Yeah, the climate's always changed, blah, blah, blah. A much better argument for it is, yes, climate change is going to be a problem. We can actually deal with it if we prepare for it properly and take advantage of moving away from fossil fuels slower than we are trying to catch this whole net zero nonsense.
Having been in the motor industry a long time myself, cars are not the problem, and the world has always changed.
But I mean, I would agree, petrol cars are not the problem, because even when you move to electric, you have to rely on the fact that you're not using fossil fuels to fuel that, which, to be fair, in Britain, a third of it will be coming from renewable energy. I just can't see a time where that's going to be 100% of energy, especially since they rely on subsidies.
How's conference gone?
Very, very enlightening. I was here all day yesterday, and I've basically been chasing up my applications to stand for a councillor in Reform as well. So yeah.
That is genuinely good news to hear. They were really encouraging people to sign up to at least do some volunteer work for Reform, but it seems that they really do want to professionalise this party and get candidates absolutely everywhere. Genuinely, if you follow my channel and are wondering if there's anything you can do in real life, I think genuinely join Reform and try and become a candidate for them and be as sensible as you can is the main thing I'd say. That last one especially, be as sensible as you can. Because, not being funny here, we have seen certain people get into politics a little bit unseriously, and the consequences of that appear to be that they can never become a serious politician, even when they need to be. And trust me, you don't want to be in that position. All it seems to breed is frustration, so be as sensible as you can is my number one thing to say to people.
You've heeded Nigel's call for to stand.
I've applied to stand. To start the ball off, yes, okay, yeah.
What made you want to stand as a councillor?
I think, for me, it's a matter of conscience. I think to stand by and do nothing is now, it's not an option because it simply becomes part of the problem.
Base, to be honest, I'm at the point where, it's got too much. I've thought for quite a while, even while doing YouTube, what can I do that's more than just making the videos here? You know, some people have said that's good enough, that's way more than what other people are doing, which is true, but at the same time, you know, my potential's a little bit more than that. I'm struggling to say whether I could be a candidate because of this. I mean, I guess that would be up to Reform. However, I'm happy to be an activist for them in any way I can. Again, being as sensible as I can.
I think also multiculturalism only works if people adapt to your own country, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's become another massive issue again, and I wish people would just get over it, but British does effectively just mean English. It's effectively a synonym for it. We Anglified Wales, Scotland and Ireland. That's what happened when they became part of Britain. Why do they all speak English? Why do they largely follow English customs, as well as their own, obviously, ones that are inoffensive? Yeah, effectively, multiculturalism works when the core of the damn thing is you serve a monoculture. Britain is a multicultural society. It's just people don't like to hear that only really means England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland, or Northern Ireland at this point. And that's fine, but for some, well, I know exactly why. Leftists then take that and mean, oh, that means that anyone can join the club. It ain't true.
So it's like, for the example is, I'm a Christian, so's him. England used to be quite, Christian based, it had values.
It used to be quite Christian based. We literally sent out missionaries. Hell, ending the slave trade was literally a Christian crusade. Just done by the British.
And I don't think I think if you're immigrating to this country, you should have tried to adapt to it.
Again, I think this is something we need to be specific about. Like, a German can come over and work here for a year. I don't think he then needs to become British. But if he was coming over to then stay here, if his intention is to live here and have a family here, then yes, absolutely. To be fair, I think that's just me being pedantic, but, well, I like being pedantic.
In the same way that if I go to Dubai or Turkey, where it's like strong Muslim, I shouldn't be overpowering my English Christian views there, because it's like respect,
Yeah, I said it at the start, and the rest of the context makes this absolutely fine, yeah. I guess in some places in Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia, they do have effectively compounds where people can be English, where you can have alcohol. But again, this is at the behest of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia want that because they want their kids to learn English. Or they want engineers from England there, say. Or Britain, I should say. It doesn't really matter. But when Brits have been voting to have less immigration and none of these colonies, then yeah, we should probably stop bringing in immigrants and having these colonies.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And I think we've gone a bit too soft on it now, to the point it's potentially dangerous to speak out in your own country and home a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, self-determination's absolutely fine. Why should anyone else say what England should do apart from the English? What should people of Britain say that Britain should do apart from the British? Obviously, the British should decide what Britain does. It's perfectly fine.
Your point about Dubai, I suppose people who move to Dubai, they still drink, which obviously is against Islam.
I think it's wrong. Do you think so? I think it's wrong.
Well, this is the thing. Yes, they do drink. However, they do it where the UAE have dedicated an area for them to drink. And this is the problem with Britain. There are areas where there are now certain different cultural norms. I mean, my God, I was on TikTok during Pakistani Independence Day, and my God, the amount of English towns I saw that had these people live streaming these massive celebrations of Pakistan Independence Day while in Britain, which, if that isn't ironic, I don't know what is. And this is the thing, who wanted that? Who voted for that? The answer is no one. Dubai. Who decided that there could be English colonies there? Or at least rest of the world colonies? Oh, the prince there. He decided he wanted it to improve the economic situation there, and he kept it away from the natives who might not like it. Okay, that's fine, but that's not what was agreed here. That is why people are annoyed. You don't need to go as far as to say, as is always the classic, oh, what about all these Brits going to Benidorm and taking over the place? Well, that's up to the Spanish to stop. If they don't like it, they can stop it. And we have no choice but to say fair enough. And we probably would say fair enough. The thing is, they're not going to do that because tourism in Benidorm is absolutely massive and they want our money. That's fine. That's a perfectly fair trade. But this is the thing. I don't know anyone who specifically voted or was even aware that they would turn towns in Yorkshire into places where they would effectively be taken over by people celebrating Pakistan Independence Day. If you don't see a difference there, it is pointless talking to you.
So when I went to university, so I've got 3 degrees.
Oh my God, you've got 3 degrees? Yeah, no, this is definitely a case of a woman whose brain works quicker than a mouth. Again, loving the energy, but 3 degrees? What the hell did you do?
I work in the professional industry. I do very well.
Well, I hope you're paying back your student loans from that as well. I mean, to be fair, she will only have to get student loans for one of those degrees. You have to pay for the other 2 degrees yourself after you've got one. So at least that's the case. But yeah, I hope you are doing well for yourself. You should do after 3 degrees.
I've worked and grafted hard. Yeah, fair enough, I've got some generational wealth, which people say is white privilege. It ain't white privilege, mate, yeah. It is my fathers, yeah, working hard, grafting on the farms, handing the wealth down, because my family have been here for generations.
I mean, for a start, I'm quite shocked that your dad's a farmer and is rich from that, but anyway. Yeah, that's fine, white privilege, yep, total nonsense, yep, I agree with you. You don't even need to get that defensive about it, just say, yeah, you graft. It's fine. With all the lottery winners who spaff all of their winnings up the wall, it's perfectly reasonable to say actually keeping generational wealth is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, I've had a bit of help. I could have had more help. I've had something trickle fed to me, but I have worked and grafted hard. It's not white privilege. Sorry, I've just sworn it. But I'm getting passionate about this now.
I mean, again, I'm loving the energy. We're gonna stop going on about white privilege at this point. Yeah, it gets really annoying when a lot of what you have done in life is actually of your own work and you're just told, oh, it's just because of your skin colour you got there. It's very irritating, especially when it's not true. And doing 3 degrees, I mean, I'd argue it's a waste of time, but I'm going to believe her and say that clearly she has also grafted and got to a decent position in a company and probably is earning a fair amount of money. Fair enough. And yeah, getting help from your parents, I just don't think people should be embarrassed by that. I think I said in my last video, or video before, on university fees, obviously my parents helped me through the degree where I needed it, but also once the degree was over, my dad paid for a fair amount, we'll say, of my student loans, and he didn't have to, and that's just direct help. And it's not something I show off to say, oh, my dad's richer than your dad or anything like that. It's just to say, yeah, I've had help. I'm transparent about that and open about that. I think parents helping their kids should be the norm. And, obviously you can only do it within your means. And I don't think there's any shame in having less means to help your kids. I don't think there's any shame about that whatsoever. You do what you can, and people will understand that. And if you've done everything you can, you've been a great parent. That's fine. But my God, does this woman have anything coherent to say now?
Just so happens that white Caucasian people have lived here and are the ethnic group.
No, I don't like that. I don't like being put in the same category as French people. The ethnic group of Britain is 4 main groups: English, Welsh, Scottish, Irish. Yes, they all do happen to be white, but you're going too much into an Americanism if you start focusing on the white aspect of it. Nobody cares if you're white. You're in Europe, for God's sake. Everyone is white here.
If I go to Ancestry DNA and I get my DNA done, it tells me exactly what my DNA is.
Yeah, it doesn't say white, does it? It says English. I assume it'd say English. You look English.
Right, so it's not racist to say. I mean, it's not racist to say, oh, the ethnic culture, or the ethnic diversity, like racial profile in this country is Caucasian.
Yes, I suppose if you want to get very pedantic about it, we can say that England is a white country. I just don't think it's particularly useful. And saying it's a white country, therefore it's bad, is yes, bad woke leftism. I do agree.
So
Have you done that?
Yeah, I've done that.
What's your breakdown?
I'm 40% Scottish, and we already knew this anyway, because I'm a direct descendant of the clan members of the Elliot clan.
Man, when people start talking about this, it makes me think I really need to look into my family tree. I know an auntie and uncle have done it, but they're quite weird, and I don't trust their work, I guess I'd say. Honestly, the best thing I can do is try and become a celebrity and get on Who Do You Think You Are, but, that might take work.
So the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th clan members, I'm a direct descendant of that. We already knew that anyway, so...
Oh my god, she is all over the place. What was the other 60%? We don't know because they cut her off, but my god, she... People really need to be trained how to do vox pops. Just, if you're asked a question, either take a deep breath or repeat the question to them because it gives you time to think. It's something Jimmy Carr does in his stand-ups. When people heckle him, he will say like, what? Did you just say this? And when they say, yeah, what he's actually doing there is repeating the question to think about a funny answer. And it makes the heckle really funny. Do the same thing with vox pops. They're effectively the same thing.
Which Christian values would you like to see more of in this country?
I believe the unselfishness that it brings. So the fact that you would get up early, you go to church. I also think that we miss the community side.
Yeah, that's definitely something I have been noticing. Obviously, I grew up going to church quite a lot with my mother, getting involved with the church, and yeah, you end up knowing a lot of people in the community and making genuine lifelong friendships through there. I mean, hell, the quiz I used to go to when I lived at my mum and dad's, that was literally all people we met through church, things like that. Genuinely, you make friends through there. But not only that, you work with these people, volunteering, doing things for the church, doing things for charity, what have you. You do get a good community spirit, and yeah, that used to all come from the church. It's all been outsourced to the government. Now no one does anything.
So back in the days, it used to be that neighbours all knew each other. You knew that if you were a kid and you played up, you knew that you were going to see the neighbours at church. So your parents knew our parents, and you'd find, I think you're more well behaved, because you all knew each other, and if there was any problems, any disrespect, you could just sort it at church. But now no one knows each other, no one really respects each other, and it's sad. It's more because it's sad.
All his points are valid, but you can just land it down to things just seem to be better when this was happening. You don't necessarily need to have all these scientific explanations on hand. I mean, you're in a vox pop, for God's sake. But again, everything he's saying, yeah, that's my experience too. I remember one time, I can't remember why I did this. I wore a hoodie and just walked down the street in the hoodie with the hood up, and someone actually told my mum that they thought I was up to no good because I was walking down the road with a hoodie up. Like, yeah, this stuff is actually true. People would know each other, communicate with each other, and it would basically keep the kids in check. It was just true. I didn't even do anything wrong, but basically it was literally like hot fuzz. Oh, we've got hoodies here. They must be up to no good. It's literally what happened. It just happens through the church rather than through the Let's Win Village of the Year competition.
It's not because there's a hate for it, it's just I think you've lost the whole sense of community and family, and a lot of people are probably stressed and have hate for each other because they just don't know each other, rather than, yeah.
I would love to know what was going through his head when he was thinking rather than. I mean, I don't completely buy that there'd be any less hate, say, in the UK if people went to church. I don't think people are particularly hating the sort of people that they're not going to church with. I think a lot of people are distrustful of people who would never go to church in their life because they're not Christian, frankly. But, I mean, it was a fair question. What Christian values do you miss? My answer would probably be forgiveness, because obviously everyone's getting cancelled and all the worst type of assumptions have to come out. That's partially through a lack of forgiveness, I'd argue. But anyway, I could go on about that for hours. But from what I can tell, apart from the one kind of crazy woman, everyone there seemed perfectly normal, perfectly capable human beings. People I'd be happy to say, yep, that's my councillor or that's my MP, so things are looking good for reform. As I say, there was a reason they had to put the mad woman at front and centre of their first clip, and it's because, as if you go to the video you'll see, oh, everyone thinks she's crackers and this is representative of reform, when frankly it probably isn't. In fact, you can tell it isn't because everyone else there was normal. Anyway, once again, that was everything I have for you today. Tuesday night it's a Tosh Talks. We will be talking about alternatives to universal suffrage, so be there if you're interested in that. Friday I should be playing Dustborn because I'm away for the week. I should have another video out this week in preparation for that, but we'll have to see. Saturday it's Laughing at the Guardian. You know what you're in for there. I think from next Monday as well, if Jack has it completed over on the Worcester Club, if you're a massive fan of his history stream and supercut I did of his issues of the 19th century for Britain, then you'll probably like his history of Rome. He is planning to do a series on that. It will once again be a multi-part series. You can catch it over at the Worcester Club. Join the Discord. Subscribe to them. If you're not subscribed to them, don't worry. I will have a link in my community page every time we go live to give it a look, because it's some of the best work I think we've done. He is really good with his history. And then obviously everything else will be as normal. I will be doing a Tosh newscast next Tuesday. It will be Dustborn probably Wednesday. Videos out as and when. But until then, that's everything I had for you today. So once again, subscribe, become a member, all that usual good stuff. Send this to friends who care. And until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.